Welcome back. I've happily spent way too many hours watching our next guest's work, so we'll start with our standard questions. Who you, what's you, and why?
Hey, Zan, it's me, Michael Swaim. So thrilled to hear that I've wasted some negligible chunk of your life. That's my real goal. I am a writer, comedian, video maker, auteur of this series of tubes that we call the internet, and currently employed, if you're getting technical, as head of video at IGN, the video games adjacent journalism surrounding enterprise. And your question brings up something interesting, which is that I never know exactly what to tell people I do, especially on like forums or during processes at the bank the taxes. We all just did taxes. That's a good one. When it asks what your occupation is, I'm thoroughly other. I don't. So if you ask what I do as far as the government's concerned, other. But if you're asking why, now there's the rub. Why do I do what I do? Because I am the kid in the sandbox who would just be over in the corner creating an elaborate lore around little like figurines that I built, and I don't need any other kids to be involved, and it's none of your business, and I'll be happy just making my own little world. I live in my head a lot. I love just the sheer act of being creative. I saw Ray Bradbury speak once, someone who famously wrote 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and ended up publishing more fiction than pretty much anyone else to ever walk the face of the earth. And I like to think that I have some of that energy, only insofar as I don't know what else I could do, because this is all I can do. It's all I've ever been interested in. And I think of it as storytelling, basically. But practically speaking, man, it's gotten me into all kinds of scrapes, meaning editing film, being a voice actor in video games, working on comic books, radio plays, feature film, all kinds of things. But to me, it's all storytelling. That's really what I love.
And sort of like the vibe of like, yeah, everybody else is just like all socializing and stuff at the party, but I'm just over in the corner vibing with the house's cat.
Exactly. And thinking up a magic system for your Dungeons and Dragons campaign. It's that kind of thing. That's what I love.
Or stressing about trying to edit the next video.
Always. Editing's fun though. I gotta say, of the like main 3 skill sets I have, which have been historically like acting or presenting, writing, and then editing film, man, I started out thinking editing was something you had to do in order to have your product be finished. Now it is my favorite part. That's where the magic happens. That's where
my
like
editor
your
would
finished
differ.
No, that's where your finished thing is first visible. That's where you first know you have something, in my opinion. I enjoy it for that reason quite a bit.
Is there anything you're working on right now or have coming out soon that you'd like to tell our audience about?
How much time do we have?
As much as you need.
I because I'm a workaholic and all I ever do is create stuff, and I'm almost addicted to it. I don't know if it's healthy sometimes. In fact, right now my eye is swollen up, and one of my theories is that it's stress from pushing myself too hard. But so many things. I'm working on science fiction horror graphic novel based on around the 7 deadly sins. That should be a lot of fun. I'm working on my first novel, a fantasy Western novel called Once Upon a Time in the West. That'll come out next year, probably. In the more immediate future, I just launched a brand new podcast called Star Trek: The Next Futurama, where me and my buddy David Bell go chronologically through every episode of Futurama and discuss it philosophically through the lens of a matching Star Trek: The Next Generation episode, where they sort of like a pairing where they explore the same theme or trope. And what else? There's a ton.
It's pretty awesome.
We got a sketch, audio only sketch show, like Kids in the Hall, but if you didn't watch it and just listen, called Beantown. We got another episode of that coming out. You can find everything I'm doing, by the way, over at patreon.com/smallbeans. And you don't even have to join or pay anything, but that's the handiest place to just see everything I'm working on. And I do work a lot because I meet lovely people like you, Zan, and they ask me to do things and I always say yes.
Oh, you gotta make me blush.
That's not possible.
Hey. So, could you tell us a little bit more about your channel, Small Beans? How did the channel come about?
Honestly, well, no, that's not quite fair. Okay, I guess I can be proud of this. So I spent the first 10 years of my career at a place called crack.com, which your listeners may be aware of. And that was a whole lot of fun. Got to work with some amazing people, a lot of whom are on to huge things now, and I couldn't be prouder of all of them. But there was a very dark day in our mutual relationships when a giant corporation came in and bought our little comedy, like our funky, quirky comedy brand, and laid everyone off and turned it into sort of a zombie enterprise. And actually, weirdly, because I am just someone who thrives on change, had quit 3 weeks before everyone got laid off. But regardless, in the same month period, all of us were scattered to the wind and didn't know what we were doing. And you know how it is, and sorry, my dog is going crazy. You know how if you picked up editor, get that later.
Don't worry, we have issues with the cats all the time. We had to
Editing's
go to a
fun.
separate room.
You'll love cutting the sound of my dog out of your thing. No, but as it is when there's a group of like 25 creatives who've all worked together that long, everyone immediately launched their own stuff, and in various combinations. And me and my primary writing partner, Abe Epperson, who have worked together my entire life, essentially, decided to launch our own, and we called it Small Beans, based on, nothing at all. It's really one of those names where I just thought of combinations of words until I found one I kind of liked. I was like, that's cute. Implies growth, the potential for growth.
Let's implies the existence of a later on character arc of the super ultra mega bean.
Exactly, that's the goal.
Excellent.
It gives you somewhere to start. Yeah, and I think it's very accessible. There's nothing intimidating about small beans. They don't bother you.
All right.
That's our vibe.
All right. Well, Small Beans has plenty of high production videos under its name. What's your process for putting together larger scale productions?
Honestly, recently, of course, that's been held at bay by the pandemic. So I'm reaching back, say 18 months to when we could actually shoot on location. But generally, either Abe or I, who are sort of the driving engines behind the decision making of Small Beans products, will say, I am dying to make a sketch. It's been too long. We got to make one. And as I said, for better or worse, that really is how we operate. We are here because we genuinely just love making the things. It's the most fun thing to spend our time doing to us. So we do it. It's not for the fame. It's not for the money. It's for the lulz. So one of us will just say, I have an idea for a sketch, or it's been too long. We need to make a sketch. And nowadays we say, too bad because of the pandemic. But someday soon, and back in the day, we would say, okay, when can you meet for a weekend, just have so much fun making each other laugh with all kinds of sketch ideas, come out of it with some kind of finished script, pick up the phone and call all our friends and see who's got leads on locations. Now, fortunately, if you've worked in the field long enough, all of my friends, or like a third of my friends, are also professional producers. So I can call my friends and they'll have very good leads on locations and costumes and ways to get deals, because we still got to put deals together. Our budget is very much not bottomless, so we just often will end up finding a location first. There's a valuable tip if you're interested in doing this kind of work. Find your location first, because if you can find a location that feels unique, you can probably write a sketch to it if you're worth your salt, or if you think long enough, and that will sell the mystique of your sketch as if you had a higher budget than you do. For example, I have a friend of a friend of a friend who lives in a giant mansion. So we did a sketch where we completely recreated Clue, the board game Clue, in live action. Now, we didn't come up with the idea, I want to do a Clue sketch, but we had the costumes available and then realized we could get a mansion. We went there and said, well, we can't afford to do anything to it. So what is there? And there was like an attic that had a private theater in it that looked like a diner. So we, kicked around. But where we landed on was they have this beautiful drawing room, and it looks exactly like the Clue drawing room where you would say, and the murderer is so-and-so. And you don't have to touch it, and it won't cost us any money because it already looks like that. So then you get a sketch that looks like you spent 10 grand on it, and it honestly just cost us beer and pizza because it's just our friends who do it for fun and blah, blah, blah. And then you can go and monetize it, and the suckers give you the sweet patronage, and then you're rich beyond wildest dreams. No, I wish that was true. But we're very lucky. Between the day job and Patreon, I make ends meet, and all I do with my time is the stuff I would want to do if I was left to my own devices. So that's great. You can't ask for more.
I must say that the concept of Clue is honestly a really good well for like comedy sketches. Like if the older movie with Tim Curry in it was any example, it is a great source. Like I was actually able to do like a really good sketch of a Clue parody where a friend of mine was like full beard but had a fan over his face the whole time, was essentially Miss Scarlet.
Oh, gotcha. That's great.
Big reveal at the very end, and everybody dies anyway. So
Clue's right, because it's already got a built-in structure. Everyone knows the game. You can do a twist on it. Ours was if Twitter was Clue. So it's people saying, well, objectively, so-and-so did it because I found the wrench with their fingerprints in the drawing room, and other people being like, I don't share your political views, so I don't believe that that's true. I understand that you believe that. That's acceptable. Hashtag stop the steal. Hashtag stop the steal.
Hey, well, guess what? I found this Squarespace website that's talking all about a conspiracy theory about the wrench itself. So your opinions are invalid.
Exactly. You got it.
And is there any place we could actually find that video for reference?
That is definitely on our YouTube channel. I think it's the promoted video right now because it's the last thing we squeezed in before lockdown came. And that's just search for Small Beans on YouTube. But again, also at patreon.com/smallbeans. Although you remind me something that the audience and yourselves might be interested in that we are doing despite quarantine is another. So here's the story. You probably are aware of me from the show Cracked After Hours because I was very lucky to be a part of creating that and be in it for 10 long years. And the bulk of people who know me from that. It's a great show. I love that show. We're all still great friends. And that show, when Cracked dissolved, didn't really get a proper finale. Even though we had shot one, they decided not to release it because they were soulless corporation. We even edited it. After we were fired, we edited it and gave it to them and said, we don't want any money and we edited this for free. We just think the fans should have the closure. Can you just release this? You would make money off it in advertising. And they said, no. So we waited until it was unlikely that we would get sued, and we released it anyway. And we did a charity stream, and Daniel O'Brien improvised something foolish, which is he said, if this charity stream makes $10,000, we'll do a bonus after hours episode. And of course it did then because he jinxed it. So we wrote a second, and it's like a 20-minute, really cathartic after hours finale with all the original cast. That will be on the Small Beans YouTube channel in about 3 weeks as well. So that's exciting too. But that is all shot like this, like we're at, we're at home in lockdown. All
right. Well, we'll provide links below for like anything pertaining to that. So as a self-proclaimed workaholic, what else have you done during the pandemic to keep yourself occupied?
Well, I was also fortunately to start a new day job, the job at IGN when quarantine began. So I think like a lot of people, I've found video games to be a bottomless source of entertainment and diversion on the road to the grave. And I now have the added excuse that I'm literally required to play certain games, and it's never shameful. You know what I mean? As an adult, as a guy in my 30s who should be working on XYZ, playing video games is still fun, don't get me wrong, but you can get that feeling of, ooh, I should have been doing XYZ. But now my job is literally to be informed about video games. So if I could go back in time and tell 10-year-old me, I mean, 10-year-old me would still be upset about the pink eye probably, but the video game thing is great.
Yeah, maybe save that time travel until that.
Yeah, I go back in time now and 10-year-old me just goes, what the hell happened to you?
This is our future.
And I'm like, this is just 2 weeks. No, don't read into this. It's temporary, man.
I was like living the dream there. So like on that topic, how did you initially get to the job at IGN?
I honestly, on the back of the work I've done at Cracked, I think Cracked Small Beans is starting to shift that balance, but Cracked is almost synonymous with me because the first sketch troupe I ever had, I made in college. Within a year or two, Cracked existed as an organization, and they hired all of us to move to Los Angeles, and I became the head of video there. And I really was given a lot of freedom to do whatever I wanted there with the video department. And all of my friends and collaborators were sort of hired at the same time. We were all hired as a unit. So like the Cracked Video YouTube channel is my work. And then as it went on, we added more people, and there's work that many great people I've worked with did. Maggie Mae Fish, David Bell, and Tom Ryman, who, you know, carved out their own niches and I had nothing to do with, and it grew and grew. But in those early days, literally every single Cracked video for the first 4 or 5 years, I was the final person to like touch the script and touch the edit. So it's hard to, I am Cracked and Cracked is me, not the article side. Cracked had a whole article side that's very different, but the video side at least. And that's only just now starting to change because I've been doing Small Beans now 3 years. And I think even though I have IGN, I'm going to keep doing Small Beans indefinitely. So there will come a time where they start to balance out, but I still feel very much like Cracked gave birth to me and gave me my first platform and sort of raised me. That's where I learned everything. And that's definitely where I got the IGN job, was on the reputation there. So they reached out and just said, we know everyone at Cracked God is unemployed. Would you happen to be looking for an analogous position? And do you incidentally have a history in gaming? Because one good thing about IGN is they really won't hire you unless, because, you know, games are so long, you need to have already spent your life playing video games. It would be hard to catch up or like become an expert at video game lexicon and the history of gaming. So I'm just lucky insofar as I have been addicted to video games my entire life, and also have done internet, content module curation. And that's what they were looking for, someone with a long history in video production online and who had a, strong interest in gaming. And that's me. And I got to say, one of the unique privileges of my life is I got started so early. I first started working at Cracked in 2007. I think if you're looking for like people who have years of experience doing short internet videos, I am among the longest that you can find. It's like me, I'm surely in the top couple hundred. I've been doing this a long time and I still love it. And I'm just super grateful that it wasn't a fad, that like internet content is the wave of the future, because I was going to do it either way. So it's very lucky that it turns out that it's a job.
Behold, everybody, the elder statesman, Michael Swaim.
Thank you, sir. Zan the younger. Zan, the transcendent, on the rise.
From your mouth to God's ears.
Thank you, sir. But yeah, I can definitely see how, like, for something like a job at IGN, where specifically with video game reviews / journalism, you need both like ability to like work with the technology, edit properly, and everything revolving around the video aspect. But then also, as we've seen with like other video game journalists, you definitely need some degree of video game dexterity in order to work with the games. Because I'm sure you've seen the other cases of like the whole Cuphead debacle and like other cases where they like can't get into the video games because they simply don't know how.
Bloodborne comes to mind.
Yes.
A game I've spent 40 or 50 hours in, but I haven't beaten. Yeah, that's everyone has areas of expertise. It was actually the same at Cracked. We were all a little too old to have a Pokemon expert, and yet we understood the zeitgeist enough to know that because it was a pop culture centric site. If we're covering the Avengers and we're covering XYZ and we're covering all these things, someone's got to do something about Pokemon. So we would all say not it, and someone would get saddled with the job of researching Pokemon. And you just try to hope that people have enough cross interest that there's that's available. And the crack team only ever got up to about 20 to 30 people, whereas IGN is longer lived than Cracked, more globally established. They have a China office and an Australian office and a European office, and we're all in communication, work together. So on the bright side, I found out, which I thought at first I was paranoid. I was like, do I need to know everything about every video game? Because there's whole genres of games that I don't play at all because didn't interest me naturally. I was like, do I need to start going back and playing every WWE 2K game? Because I never played those and I don't really know how they function. And they're like, no. Dale Driver in England is obsessed with those games, so it doesn't matter. So you end up making form stacks and spreadsheets where everyone says like what their interests are, and I've nestled right into my niche there, which is really, really weird, off the beaten path indie games, like the stuff that would fall through the cracks, which I'm proud to be. I'm the guy who's going to cover Return of Obra Dinn or Disco Elysium or Dropsy the Clown, things like that you may not have heard of right away.
Well, all right. Well, actually, since we're on the subject of like video games, childlike obsessions, and also, let's say previously obscure independent games, in one of your retrospective podcasts in the One-Upsmanship series, you had said that, quote, adult Michael Swaim's favorite game is Death Stranding. Child Michael Swaim's favorite game is Psychonauts.
Mm-hmm.
Can I start out by asking how Psychonauts is not the favorite for both?
I think because I'm gonna let the answer that rose from my gut is probably the most honest, so I'll say that because I'm very susceptible to wanting to please the person I'm with, and Adam Ganser, my co-host on that podcast, has a very strong personality and had a very strong opinion of that game, and I wanted to meet him halfway. I didn't want him to feel like I was blowing Psychonauts out of proportion. Then by the same token, I was really trying to convince him on Death Stranding because I knew I was fighting an uphill battle. So I thought if I bandied about words like favorite and best, I might drag him a few inches towards keep. So it was for the greater good, Zan.
The greater good.
Because I do think both of the games are phenomenal and deserve more love from, frankly, if you're listening to this and you've heard the podcast, Adam is a grouchy old bear. So, I'm always trying to get him to lavish more love on the games that were favorite from my childhood. So I take it Psychonauts is big for you?
Yes. Also, we over here at the Let's Update are very familiar with Grouchy Old Bears. He's the head writer.
Nice.
But yeah, I've always liked Psychonauts.
Absolutely love it.
Okay, I must ask, which level in Psychonauts gave you the most pain, either for like trying to 100% the game or just in basic level?
I will go with, now I don't say this because it's the final level. I'll go with the meat circus, but it's not just because it's the final level. I think it gave me the most pain specifically because, and this is the one place where Adam has a point, the long rail grinding section just feels like I was dying repeatedly, not because of my lack of adequacy with the controls, but because the physics was a little clunky. And that's really Adam's only leg to stand on that argument is, yeah, if you play Mario Odyssey and then you immediately play Psychonauts, you can tell that Psychonauts had a lower budget. It doesn't handle as nicely or smoothly as, say, a Mario Odyssey. But I would argue that it shows so much more storytelling chutzpah, and that's what really is my jam. So of course that's the one I'm going to go for. What's the story of Mario? It's nonsense.
It's like, oh boy, princess is kidnapped again. Now
And
let's introduce this game's gimmick.
It's simple, basic, repetitive nonsense, which is, it's fun. Just nonsense is fine, but it's just a recapitulate. There is no story. And that's why I always prefer something like Psychonauts. Death Stranding, I think it came at the perfect time because it was in the midst of pandemic that I actually had my real experience with it. And it's a game about social connection. So, you know, it sort of swept me off my feet in that way. I was like, oh, this is exactly what I need. And I don't play Animal Crossing. So this is that.
Yeah. I found that during the pandemic, a lot of more social or story-heavy games tended to break out, such as like Death Stranding, Animal Crossing, Among Us, Social That, or one that I played recently, Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh yeah, great game. Phasmophobia also is the one all my friends are into lately.
Yes.
Now Valheim is the new one.
I think so. I haven't seen much on that one.
Oh, trust me. I have a morning meeting every day where I learn everything that's happening about video games. Valheim's doing well.
So on a more personal note, when in your life did you know that you wanted to be a comedy writer / performer?
In college, when they wouldn't cast me in anything, because I initially just wanted to be an actor, and I realized that the grind of auditioning was not for me because I have too thin of a skin. And then when you do get a part, you'll do the part, because I was a theater major, I should say, not a film major, but I wanted to be a, you know, stage actor, and rehearsing is so joyful, and I love that sense of community, and acting a scene with someone who's good is really a true pleasure. But it was always frustrating to me that I didn't control what I was saying. And sometimes I thought some of the, you know, you'd do a play and I'd be like, that play wasn't that good. I could write a better play than that, I think. And then I would really want a part and get cast in a different part. And I just wanted control. So I just decided with my friend Abe and some other friends, you know, there's this thing that's was relatively new at the time called the internet, and the very, very few sketch troupes on the net that existed at that time, like Derek Comedy and, you know, Good Neighbor stuff, and Waverly Films, Poik Pack, the really, really old school internet sketch troupes, definitely inspired us. And we just felt like this is a thing we can get in on the ground floor. And we took a hard turn into comedy. And that was a very conscious choice, because my natural inclination, and I brought that back into my life as I've had time and resources to do so, like with the graphic novel I mentioned, naturally, if you sit me down, I'll write a very dark sci-fi horror story with a twist ending. That's what I trend toward. But I realized that I enjoyed comedy. My brain works with it well, meaning like I was able to decipher why jokes work and don't work very quickly. It seemed to come to me naturally. And after practice, I found out that making a funny joke is, it's less like a lightning strike and it's more like a scalpel incision. It's something that once you know how to do it, you can make it happen. And that was a big revelation to realize that comedy was somewhat mathematical. I'm like, oh, you can fabricate the act of making someone laugh, and that's such a joyous thing. I think that just hooked me in. You know, making people laugh feels so good naturally.
It's honestly like kind of similar to writing tragic stories or writing like intense drama, where like you're inflicting a feeling on someone. Whether in one case it's finding exactly what hits them right in their feels, or what just leaves them on the floor laughing.
Exactly. And you know, life shapes us as much as we shape it. So I think there's an alternate reality where maybe I got more short stories published and I went that way, and I was writing novels and short stories and stuff, but I happened to find the crack job, or it found me, and they paid to write jokes. So I wrote jokes. The more jokes I wrote, the more I was known for writing jokes and the more work that came in that was comedy specific. So now I am a professional comedian 10 years later. That said, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we're now working on our second feature film, and that is not strictly a comedy. So I am trying to steer the ship towards, well, really whatever the hell I want to do. And we want to do, Abe and I are eager to do something that's grounded and with a little more heart, because we're mostly known for setup, punchline, laugh, zany, off the wall comedy. Me especially, I usually play the wacky guy who's going to get drunk and say something inappropriate. And that's fun, but you know, variety is the spice of life. So right now we're working on a feature film that's got a lot more heart, sort of like the tone of Garden State, but a better movie than Garden State. And after that, we'll probably want to get back to zany comedy. You know, you just go back and forth and then you die, and that's the end of the story.
Is there anything more you can tell me or the audience about this upcoming project?
Yeah, it's we're pretty public about it over on our Patreon where we post all our updates, so I don't mind sharing. It's called The Furry Movie, and it's loosely based on my real childhood, which is my dad is a furry, so watch your mouth. And
okay,
it's sort of
no shame, but just
it's sort of a coming of age movie. From my point of view, I won't be in it because now I'm too old, but from young fake actor me that will cast point of view, coming to terms with that. Your dad coming out in the early 2000s as gay and a furry. And of course, that's the twist, is like the way I was raised, at least. And I'm proud to say that society's moving in this direction. My dad, when I was 17, sat me down and was like, so listen, I'm gay. And I'm like, that's so cool. You know, my parents were divorced at this point, so there was no like trauma about it. It was like, good for you. I'm like so glad that you found the truth of yourself or whatever, man. That's great. And I'm a furry. Oh boy, that's a little weirder to explain to my friends. So it does deal with and embrace the fact that being furry is still, to most vanilla normalo people in the world, is to have the reaction I think you just had, which is like, oh, no shame, do whatever you want that doesn't hurt anyone. But I don't get it. It seems weird to me. And so it's the story of coming to terms with, you know, someone you love that much, someone that close to you as your father, being like, I'm 55, by the way, when this happened. I'm 55, and I just realized I like sexual depictions of cartoon animals. And you're like, all right, I guess I'll be supportive and try and wrap my head around that. And it's about that process. And there's a lot of feels in it and a lot of laughs too, if I'm honest. But it's definitely not as wacky as something like After Hours or Agents of Cracked, that's for sure.
All right. Well, definitely sounds interesting. So, like, will this be a theatrical release, a streaming release, or what are y'all shooting for on this?
We're looking to. This is okay. I'll go this step further because you said that you don't have the biggest audience ever, but then we should stop. But it's looking like it'll get a streaming release, but I shouldn't talk about business details that are in the works.
And this is the episode that's suddenly going to get millions of views.
Suddenly goes viral
all over the internet.
And my manager's like, we have a contract, damn it.
We have a contract. Why are you talking to this?
Nobody.
Why are you talking to this nobody? And how'd you get so many views? And then, like, I don't know.
Like, who would care? And they're like, yeah, Mel Gibson heard and he's pissed for some reason. We don't know why.
Mel Gibson's always pissed.
True. All right. Going back to like your influences for getting into like a sketch comedy or things like that. Who are your sketch comedy influences?
Definitely Monty Python and Kids in the Hall. Obviously. And
it's
then
way to go.
Yeah, I think Kids in the Hall still doesn't get the love they deserve. They were with us for a brief time. There's some scuttlebutt that there might be a reunion in the works, but Kids in the Hall to me showed such a lack of self-consciousness and such a bravery in terms of, whereas SNL is doing what I think a lot of websites do, is doing well-crafted sketch around whatever the top hot thing of the day is. Kids in the Hall always felt like they were genuinely pursuing their own unique personality-driven interests. You'd be like, that's a Bruce McCullough sketch, and I didn't even like it that much because I like Dave Foley sketches more, but it had character, and I love them. I think Monty Python, with the just sheer mastery of wordplay, can't really be overstated. It's almost, I feel like comedians are scared to say that Monty Python are great because it seems so nerdy and hacky and like, yeah, everyone in high school thinks Monty Python are funny, but that's because they freaking are. It's very, very, very good material. It's like you don't have to go around saying the Beatles music was good. Yes, objectively, it was very good. So more obscure stuff. I mean, not that obscure, but big into Mr. Show with Bob and David, of course, and also a lot of individual sketch troops from the wild days of like early internet. And let's see, I know there's a whole like school of thought that I would be remiss if I didn't mention, which of course is the team that were the golden era Simpsons writers who then went on to leave that show, leave it a husk, and make Futurama. So if you follow the individual writers, most of the good ones left Simpsons right when Futurama was ramping up. So I sort of consider the golden era of Simpsons and then the bulk of Futurama as this one body of work. And I think that is probably the best comedy thing that there is golden era Simpsons / Futurama. And then Arrested Development is the other one, the other crown jewel.
Did you ever get into The State?
Oh, The State is phenomenal. I definitely did. I mean, at this point, I love, like, I am a comedy junkie, and I made it my business to know a lot of comedy. So there's been a point in my life where I probably had a moment with any sketch troupe you can mention. But yeah, The State are great. When we won our Webby, we got to hang out with David Wayne and Ken Marino backstage for a long time. And that was super, super cool. That was a highlight because I think, Wet Hot American Summer is probably my top 3 comedy features, like comedy movies for sure. Just when they walk off a frame and they just stand against the wall, facing the wall. Do you know the scene I'm talking about? Have you seen Wet Hot? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Good. Gets me every time.
That and Paul Rudd with the just the lunch tray and kicking along like.
Oh yeah, the
like,
sulky Paul Rudd
kills me every time.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah. At the very least, them's that the Kids in the Hall and The State made for slightly better looking as women than the Pythons.
Yeah, that's true. And I wonder, I am going to assume maybe they get grandfathered in or grandmothered in, as the case may be. I wonder if Kids in the Hall will still do the cross-dressing if they do the reunion. Because I think that's less acceptable now.
I don't know. I think they'd still probably do it.
I think they'll still probably do it because they kind of have that thing where it's like, this is the troupe and we play literally everyone. So it feels less aggressive than, I don't know. I digress.
These interviews are all digressions.
Perfect.
Yeah. So for a more personal topic of comedy, are you the funniest person in your family?
Oh, that's a good question. I think my uncle just barely edges me out. I do have a very funny uncle, but the important thing is I'm funnier than my dad, right? That's what you really want. That'll show the bastard. Because he imparted my love of comedy, but I believe I've surpassed him. Or, comedy has a way of becoming dated. Perhaps someone, perhaps like the younger generation will find me dated and think they're funnier than me, and this is just the way of things. But I think I'm funnier than my
job, old man.
I think I'm funnier than my dad, but I have a childless uncle who's funnier than me because you know how like a weird uncle can be funny. I wouldn't want to live with him, but he's funny.
Well, evidently, then, like surpassing your father in the comedy parts, the father has now become a source of a more dramatic piece for your upcoming short film.
Yeah, exactly. He's the fodder. The father has become the fodder, as it were. New material.
Our head writer has come up with worse puns. So, I had something. Oh yes, could you tell me, like, I know that you're into D&D, so as with many other people that come on the show who are into D&D, please tell me about your D&D character.
Oh, well, currently I'm playing a character called His Mercy, who is a Loxodon monk, which if you're not familiar with Loxodons, that means he is an elephant person. So in a way, I am a furry.
Following in your father's footsteps.
As so many things are, which is something we explore in the movie. You know, so many Disney cartoons, and like anthropomorphizing animals actually has a long, proud tradition dating all the way back to the Sphinx and Medusa and so on. But anyway, yeah, I'm an elephant monk. I actually just got my trunk blown off and replaced with a enchanted prosthetic trunk that has like 4 metal pincers, and each pincer is carved with a rune. So like this one can cast Burning Touch once a day, and this one can cast Shock once a day. The DM, frankly, is too generous. I think he's letting us become overpowered, you know? Where it's like, I have so many magical items now, I lose track of them. I hope my DM doesn't hear this. He'll be pissed. But I like a more focused, I like having 3 things to choose from, not 25. Now we're getting into the minutia of D&D preferences. But yes, love D&D. Still have managed to play in quarantine, although I can't wait to play in person again. There's nothing like it.
I can definitely relate to having far too many magic items. I've been playing the same character for, what, 10 years now?
No, it was, you just started it right before your bar mitzvah. So,
so
like
about this
7 or 8.
7 or 8 years. And
you accrue too much, right? You're like this wand of bird call. What is this? When did I get this?
It's just like, yeah, I forgot I had this thing that could teleport the boss to an alternate dimension. Boop.
Yeah, and the DM's like, I gotta be honest, when I added this boss in, I also forgot that. I have no more material written. That's the end of the session.
Everybody go home.
And that, or more likely, my DM will just be like, I have been trying to remind you about that thing for a while. You know, this would be the perfect thing to use for the boss.
Oh, that's good. I think our DM sort of overarms us and then forgets to put in enough of an adversary. And we'll be like, oh boy, the pizza's not even here yet. We tore through those orcs, man. We better portal in some bronze dragons or something.
So a sizable portion of your content is centered around various aspects of nerd culture. So
Absolutely.
what's your writing process like for covering this in like video games or in other aspects of nerd culture?
Honestly, I love giving this answer because it's true, and it's one of the few times that something true is delightful, which is that I just follow what I'm interested in. Just follow the twinkles. It really is genuine passion for nerd culture, which has just sort of become pop culture, which kind of blends into all culture. Most culture. High fashion is still doesn't overlap with nerd culture much, but most things touch on nerd culture. And something that started out niche when I was very young, you know, just now so happens to be the most popular monetizable thing around, which is superheroes and wizards and space and lasers and stuff. When I was
the big 3, androids, aliens, and wizards.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that really was like not the main thing that adults did with their time. And as I grew up, it became totally acceptable. It's what most adults care about the most. And so that's just great. It's a good time to be alive. I think it's the golden age of nerd culture, frankly.
Yes. Also, I must say, follow the twinkles. Best offhand comment so far this season. And Mal and Smith call me Space Elvis. So I think, yeah, they can hit the top.
I'm in rarefied company. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. And how do you, focusing specifically on video games, how do you feel about the modern landscape of video games with VR, new generation of consoles, and just classic PC gaming?
Honestly, I think that the quarantine aspect really shifted it. Like you said, it's driven a return, or not a return, but a rise in social games. We were just talking in today's news meeting how this new co-op game, It Takes Two, from a company who generally only make co-op games, is selling way better than anyone thought it would. And a lot of people who follow the video game beat for a while aren't surprised, because it seems like with things like Among Us and It Takes Two, all signs are pointing towards the resurgence of co-op, and especially couch co-op, or any way to emulate the experience of couch co-op, including, we have such big TVs now that split screen is acceptable again. Whereas there was a time where playing GoldenEye, you would start to be like, I can't play with 4 people. I can't even see what's going on. I think people want new innovative ways to connect with their friends and hang out socially, which frankly sucks for me because, as I said, I like to play alone in the sandbox. My favorite type of game has always been a crafted, curated single player experience like The Last of Us or something that is just a story. So I hate it, but I expect that the rise of social games where you interact with your friends is what we're going to see, at least in the short term. And I wonder if it's not a semi-permanent change. I mean, nothing's permanent, but for a decade, let's say, I think that's the way we'll be headed. Yeah. Especially with the creation of virtual spaces that you can share. I think that's going to be a thing too, more and more.
How do you feel about the emergence of VR games, like either in its single player aspects or in the new social landscapes such as VR chat?
Yeah, I feel like VR chat is an inevitability, but it's in the uncanny valley. Like, I'm waiting. I think VR chat will only really take off when it gets really, really good and it feels really nice and it's not laggy and it doesn't feel like you're in a sterile environment. Now, gaming is a limited time thing where you're accepting that you're going into an altered reality. So I think VR gaming's already there. Like, I would say at this point, VR is not a gimmick or a fad. I have an Oculus and I play it all the time. And it feels real. It feels like, oh yeah, this is playing video games. This is not a tech demo, as it was in in previous iterations of VR. I think we're really there, and we're going to start seeing VR become a real factor in the market, especially as the price point comes down. And it's great that you reminded me, because my other project I want to shout out is there is a VR snowboarding game coming out called Carve Snowboarding, and I am the narrator of that game, and it's my first video game credit. So I voice act in that game. Yeah, so check that out.
Definitely will check it out.
Yeah.
And see if we can drop some links below for that.
Absolutely. It'll be pretty cheap in the Oculus store.
All right.
You can listen to my voice while you snowboard.
Excellent. Yeah, a buddy of mine keeps trying to get me into VR, and I've been a little bit on the fence for a little while. So I'll definitely take this into consideration in the future.
Yeah, there's a lot of good experiences to be had. I highly recommend Moss, Lone Echo, and Ayahuasca, the one that's just a simulation of an ayahuasca trip. That one's dope.
All right, then. Just one final question that we've been asking all the guests this season, a bit of a fun one. If you had a magic wand or a genie's lamp or an infinity gauntlet or some other magic item that would allow you to change 2 things about the world, what would you change?
2 things. That's so interesting.
It is.
I like it because it relieves the necessity to do something selfless. Normally, I feel like for persona reasons, you have to say. So first, I'd say like, my first thing would be Jeff Bezos would give away all his money to just instantly solve all the world's problems, fix Flint's water and what have you.
I'd definitely take a magic wand.
Yeah, or just 1/10 of 1% of the money Jeff Bezos has. We just have to make him do it. We just have to make him give it to us. But there,
it is inevitable.
Now that my woke, socially and responsible answers out of the way, this is why I love I get 2. I can think, all right, Mike, but really, you got 2. What do you want? And it's hard for me not to just wish for my eye to not be the way it is right now. But I can think bigger than that because that will pass in time. So you know what? The honest answer is I would make my dog live as long as a human. Because that sucks, right? We all hate, like, pets are great, but I would love, and I don't want them to live longer than me because that's disrespectful.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the
I-
Futurama thing,
yeah.
too.
Yeah, like the Futurama sequence.
No,
with Fry's
screw
dog.
that.
It's like, no.
I would just think my dog could live to 65. It doesn't have to be 12, you know? I'd take yeah, that's what I'd do. Quadruple my dog's life. That's cute.
What kind of dog do you have?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Come here, Rolly. Everyone loves this. Rolly.
No, you didn't edit this out.
No, we love it with the dogs.
Well, he might be, I think he's on a walk with his. Oh, there he is. All right. This will be a good way to end the thing. All right, come on, see if it.
In the further
There he
view of the house.
is. Rolly, Rolly.
Wow.
Look up here, Bush.
He's a little wolf.
He's a husky puppy.
He's a little dire wolf.
Yeah. Hi, Bush.
Aw, so cute.
That's Rolly, the husky puppy.
Aw.
He's awesome.
So he's still got a good decade on him.
Excellent.
All right. I think that is a perfect place to wrap it up. So, Michael Swaim, everybody. We'll be right back.